Have you ever put together what you thought was an incredible match in TEW9, only for it to score a disappointing 74? Or maybe you've had the opposite happen. A match that looked fairly average on paper somehow ended up getting an 88, and you had no idea why. If that's happened to you, you're definitely not alone. One of the biggest misconceptions in TEW community is that match ratings are based purely on how good the wrestlers are. In reality, there are a lot more going on behind the scenes. The game looks at popularity, in-ring performance, psychology, chemistry, booking decisions, your product settings, road agent notes, crowd reactions, and a whole range of bonuses and penalties before it even calculates the final rating. Today, we're going to break down exactly how the system works using information from the official TEW9 handbook, Adam Ryland's comments and FAQs, and other top players' performance and information they have handed into the forums. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some matches massively overperform, why others underperform, and most importantly, how to consistently book better shows. So with that, let's get into it. The first thing we need to clear up is probably the biggest myth in TEW9. Many players think the numbers you see after the match is simply how good the match was. It isn't. The final number is actually the end result of several different calculations happening behind the scenes. The handbook explains that the game doesn't just judge the wrestling itself. Instead, it builds the final segment rating from multiple components that all influence each other. Think of it like judging a real wrestling match. Imagine two wrestlers go out, have an incredible technical contest. Every move is excellently perfected. The psychology is excellent. They don't make any mistakes. If the crowd barely knows who they are and isn't emotionally invested, the match won't feel nearly as special as it otherwise could. Now imagine the opposite. Two huge stars come out to thunderous reactions. The crowd is hanging on every near fall, but the actual wrestling is fairly basic. That match can still feel like a massive success because the audience is emotionally invested in the wrestlers. TEW9 tries to recreate exactly this balance. That's why understanding how the game reaches the final rating is far more useful than simply looking at the numbers itself. One of the most important concepts in the handbook is that every standard wrestling match generates two separate ratings before the final score is worked out. These are the wrestling rating and the crowd rating. Let's start with the wrestling rating. This represents the quality of the wrestling performance itself. The game considers things such as how well the wrestlers performed, their psychology, their consistency, chemistry, match aims. Hi everyone, Future Geordie here. I did just mention crowd management and I was going to mention match aims, but I've already covered this in full in another video. However, I accidentally cut storyline match aim from that video. That is mostly used in sports entertainment and is generally mandatory to be used at least once in a show. It is less taxing on the wrestler's body health and it won't be as likely to be pinged for an off night or consistency issues as, say, Steal the Show. I will link it at the end of this video and it will be in the description. So thank you, back to the video. And various in-ring bonuses and penalties. For newer players, think of wrestling rating as answering one simple question. If nobody knew who these wrestlers were, how good was the wrestling itself? Now let's look at the crowd rating. This is something completely different. Instead of judging the wrestling quality, it measures how invested the audience was. The game looks at things like popularity, momentum, character positioning, crowd reactions, and whether the audience actually cared about what they were watching. You could have fantastic wrestling, but if the crowd isn't emotionally invested, your crowd rating may be significantly lower. Likewise, legendary stars can sometimes achieve an excellent crowd rating, even if the wrestling itself isn't exceptional. This is one of the reasons why popularity is so valuable in TEW9. It doesn't automatically make someone a better wrestler. It makes people care, and caring is incredibly important. So now we have two different numbers. The obvious question is, which one matters more? And the answer is, it depends. Your product settings determine how much importance is given to each element. Some products heavily reward in-ring quality, others place much more emphasis on entertainment and star power. Many products somewhere in the middle. This is one of the biggest mistakes new players make. They'll watch a YouTube guide that recommends signing technical wrestlers, without realizing that advice might only work for products that heavily reward wrestling ability. If you're running a sports entertainment company, simply filling your roster with technical specialists isn't guaranteed to improve your shows. Likewise, if you're running a pure promotion, relying purely on charisma and popularity probably won't give you the results you're hoping for. Understanding your product is every bit as important as understanding your wrestlers. So bonus and penalties. So here's where things get really interesting. Neither the wrestling rating nor the crowd rating is necessarily the final version of those scores. Throughout the calculation process, the game applies a wide variety of bonuses and penalties. Some improve the match, others reduce it. For example, road agent notes can influence the outcome. Certain match aims are more appropriate than others. Chemistry between wrestlers can improve performances. Poor selling can hurt a match. Lack of psychology can reduce quality. Inexperience can cause issues. Fatigue may have an impact. Certain booking decisions can create penalties, and sometimes the crowd simply isn't responding as well as you'd hoped. What makes TEW9 so rewarding is that these aren't random. Almost every major bonus or penalty has a reason behind it. If you understand those reasons, you can start making much more smarter booking decisions instead of guessing. Hey everyone, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to everyone who supports the channel, all my Patreon members. I was also hoping that if you were enjoying the content, you might give me a like and a subscribe for future content and previous content that you may not have seen. I am working currently on a 2001 mod and documenting it on this channel. The beta is currently available on Patreon for anyone who would like to support the channel further and help me with the feedback on the mod. With that out of the way, let's get back to this video. We're going to look quickly at why lower ratings sometimes can be better than higher ones. Now hear me out. This is probably the thing that confuses players the most. Imagine these two matches. The first one features two incredible wrestlers putting on an outstanding technical contest. The second features two hugely popular stars having a very entertaining, emotional main event. It's entirely possible for the second match to receive the higher final rating depending on your product. Why, you ask? Because TEW9 isn't trying to judge wrestling in isolation. It's trying to judge whether the audience enjoyed the segment. Real wrestling promotions have always faced this balance. Some fans want 5-star classics, others want to see their favourite stars. TEW9 models that balancing act remarkably well. So don't automatically assume that a technically superior match should always receive the better score. Sometimes giving the audience exactly what they want is more valuable. So we're on to match focus and show ratings. Let's move away from the individual matches for a moment and talk about something that catches a lot of players out: your match focus setting. Many players assume that every match contributes equally to the final show rating. This isn't always true. Depending on your company's product settings, the game can place far more importance on specific matches, particularly your main event. For example, if your product heavily weighs the main event, an outstanding opener won't fully compensate for a disappointing finish to the show. On the other hand, if your main event delivers exactly what your audience expects, it can have a significant positive influence on the overall show. This means you shouldn't think of every match as carrying the same weight. When planning a card, it's worth asking yourself, which matches does my product expect to be the biggest attractions? Those are the matches that often deserve your strongest performances, your best storylines, and most careful booking. Understanding this can completely change how you structure your events, especially once you're running major pay-per-views. So now that we've covered the theory, let's finish with 3 practical tips you can use immediately. Tip 1. Don't judge wrestlers by one match. A disappointing rating doesn't automatically mean a wrestler is bad. Look at the road agent notes and identify what actually affected the score. Was it popularity, psychology, chemistry, fatigue? The notes usually point you towards the real issue. Tip 2. Book your product, not someone else's. Advice what works for an All Japan style promotion won't necessarily work for WWE, and vice versa. Before changing your roster or booking style, make sure it aligns with what your product rewards. Tip 3. Learn from the road agent notes. For a newer player especially, the road agent notes are one of the best learning tools in the game. Instead of ignoring them, use them to understand why the game rewarded or penalised a match. Over time, you'll start to recognise patterns and make better decisions before the show even begins. So let's quickly recap what we've learned. A match rating isn't the measure of wrestling quality. The game first evaluates the wrestling rating and the crowd rating before combining them according to your product settings. On top of that, bonuses and penalties can push the score higher or lower based on your booking decisions and what happens during the match. Finally, remember that your product doesn't just influence individual matches, it can also affect how different matches contribute to the overall show rating, making the structure just as important as match quality. Once you stop chasing a single number and start understanding why the game produced that number, improving your shows becomes much easier. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because this is just the first episode in our official TEW IX Handbook Explained series. In the next video, we'll tackle another mechanic that confuses a lot of players and break it down into practical advice that you can actually use in your own save. So until next time, catch you down the road.